boy, I got exposed to a saying that says your talent will put you, or your talent rather, will make room for you. And today I get to see one of the most talented human beings I've ever come across. One of the most humblest guys in the world. A very talented human being. And rumor has it that he and I are related somehow. so today we're going to clarify that. But we're chatting to one of the most amazing human beings. You know him as Kabomo Vilakazi, born and bred in Benoni a couple of years ago. A couple of years being a few decades. So today we get to chat to him about exactly who he is, what it's all about, where he's from, and why he does the things that he does. Kabomo, thank you so much for conversations with Lucy. Truly appreciate it. So we see you on TV, whether it's on Scandal, whether it's on Rhythm City, whether it's on Sober Companionship. We get to hear about you, get to hear your music on radio, and get to see you on TV. But if you were to take us back to Benoni, who is Kabomo Vilakazi?
Well, I was born and raised in Davidson, as you said, and my father decided that I needed to be raised by women, so he took me and took me to Whiteville to be raised by his mother, his grandmother, and my aunts. So I pretty much come from the East Rand and Davidson and in Whiteville, been raised by these women on both sides of my family. And Davidson is a very musical township. So we have a music school there. You have kids as young as 12 playing trumpets and playing guitars and piano. So that's the kind of environment I grew up in. And I was very thankful that I grew up in an environment that allowed me to pursue my passion at a young age.
Yeah, I mean, we will get to speak about your passion, but I want to speak about Davidton or the East End in its entirety,
sure.
About the number of talented people that are coming from there. So you can't think of any genre in this country and not reference. And not reference
someone from the
or the East End rather. So what do you think is the thing about the East End that really gets to produce such talented human beings across the country?
Well, it's hard for me to know what it is specifically because I haven't been to other townships to be able to compare it.
Yeah.
But I know that my experience is that it was very easy. We're all accessible to each other. Like Vera or someone I went to high school with. So if someone I had jam sessions with, Loma Tosa, who passed away the week before she passed away, her and I were chatting about me writing music for her. So we were always accessible to each other. There's always jam sessions to this day. At any point in Davidson, you'll find a group of musicians having jam sessions.
Yeah.
I don't know if this is the experience that other people have in their townships, but I think that's why, at least where I come from, there's so much rich music coming from there because there's support, there's access, there's spaces. You're allowed to be your unique individual self, to experiment, and that was my experience coming out from Davidson. Just like this space where there were churches and halls where we were always just meeting and making music, and it ranged from R&B to soul to jazz, to gospel. Whatever you brought to the plate, there's always space for you.
I mean, so coming from a household full of women, and them raising you, what did you want to become as a child growing up? I mean, because I grew up in a house where my dad was a prison warden, my mom did different things, right? And I wanted to become a doctor or a lawyer. And So when as a child growing up, what did you want to become?
I wanted to be an actor, actually. I've always loved music, and I've always been a fan of music. And I think even today, I probably go to people's shows more than I put on shows myself. Because I'm a fan of music, and I never imagined myself as an artist myself. I just imagine myself being able to go to festivals across the world and just experiencing other people's music. The one thing that I always did as a kid, I even won competitions when I was a kid, was always being an actor. That's just always been my passion. Even in high school, I hardly ever put music shows together. The one thing I did was write plays and put plays together and cast myself in the lead.
So you become the reference to play the same time.
Exactly. I just always love being an actor. So a lot of people actually today think that my being an actor is me taking advantage of my being a celebrity as a musician.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, that's always been my passion. if I had it my way, that would have been the first thing I wanted to do more than the music.
Listen, I want to confess. Yeah. I've always seen you as Kabomo the artist.
For sure.
Or the musician before Kabomo the actor.
Yeah, most people think that. And most people think it's not even something like I wanted to do. It's just like, oh, this door is open for you because you're a musician. Yes. So you took advantage of it. I'm like, no, this is what I always wanted to do.
Okay. Now this changes the script completely. Because I mean, I've known you for how many years now? 10, 12 years?
For sure.
For as long as I've known you, I've always seen you as the musician and
who happens to act.
Yeah, and any other thing that came after music was secondary to me. And now I know that you're actually the actor first and then
for sure.
a musician secondary. I mean, Kabomo, you're one of the most talented human beings I've ever come across, right? So and you're multidimensional. So whether it's you holding a mic on stage, whether it's you writing play for other people, writing music for other people, being a music director. So I mean, you speak about acting being your passion. In terms of, I mean, we grew up in an environment where acting or doing music was not considered to be a career that you can pursue. Looking at where you come from, the support that you had from family, how supportive were your parents or the family that raised you in you pursuing this dream that you had?
You know, my dad wanted me to go into university and study business or whatever because he's always been passionate about business. But even though that's what he wanted for me, they never discouraged it. But they were never fully supportive of it because they, especially my father, had many friends who were musicians who didn't do so well in the business. So he was always really concerned for it. But I think his reservation came from a place of love, so it didn't seem like an act of hatred or whatever. His not full supporting of me was not something I felt was like a betrayal of my purpose. I always felt like I understood where he came from, and he just wanted me just to have something to fall back on, and which is something, to tell you the truth, as an adult, as a 44-year-old. Like, my nephew is my sister's baby. Seems like he's an artist, and it's something that scares me because being an artist in this country is hard.
Yeah.
I wish I actually had listened to my parents and went to university and study something. I don't care how talented you are. Every young person who comes to me and says, "What advice have you got for me?" I'm like, your ability to sing and your ability to act and whatever will never go away. That's something God has given you. But go to school, go to university, get a degree, whatever you can get a degree on. And actually, I never went to university, and something I regret. There's a lot of learning there academically, obviously, but there's also like a lot of learning socially and interacting with people from different provinces, different countries, and university. That environment, I think, is important for development. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But just if you think about it, for every kid who raps, right, the AKA is gonna come out of that is like 1 out of 1,000.
Yeah.
The Casmo is gonna come out of that is like 1 out of 2,000. There's just realistically, there isn't enough. I don't want to say space. There isn't enough possibility for you to bank purely on your ability to sing or rap and put everything aside to it and say, you know. And I don't want to say this is to dismiss people's talents or to discourage them. I just think, out of my friends from Davidson that I grew up with, I was the least talented one, right? I was the one who wasn't supposed to make it, and all the guys who we were convinced were going to be superstars never had that break. I don't know why God decided that I had to. And I always wanted to myself, like, with all that talent, and they did everything right. They worked hard, they worked on their craft, they did demos, they did shows, and it just didn't happen.
Yeah.
And I wish we'd all gone to university so that when it didn't work out for some of us, then we had like an option for us to go do something else with our lives, you know?
I mean, it's a bad joke. It's funny that you compare Casper and AKA and then you give 1,000 and give 2,000. But so let's move on. I mean, you speak about education, right? So that, you know, the stuff that you will learn, from university outside of academics. So it teaches you social skills, it teaches you resilience, it teaches you how to interact with other people, and you get other life lessons, that will then help you to get to the next level.
For sure.
And without discouraging people to pursue their talents, because also it takes us a long time to understand exactly what our gifts are. Right?
For sure.
And it also takes us a bit of time to understand how you can marry both your talent and your passion for things.
For sure.
So because you speak about, the guys that you thought were talented, better than you, and you were the least talented from the group, you were the least the least likely to succeed from the rest of the group. But then don't you think that working on your craft alone is not enough? Having a talent alone is not enough. Don't you think it needs a bit of that other thing, that one thing that really makes you stand out from the rest? Because there's 1,000 people can sing in a room, but there has to be that one person that can stand out from the rest. So don't you think maybe a bit of that thing that others did not have is the thing that you had and that made you stand out?
I mean, what do you call the thing, and how do you quantify it, and how do you teach it to other people, and how do you recognize it to other people? I mean, Jay-Z says he was lucky. This guy who's a billionaire, he attributes his success to luck, because in his environment there were 1,000 other people who rap like him. Right, and he literally says, skill, hard work, determination, drive, and an element of luck is why he got to where he is. He was a drug dealer, so he could have been arrested, he could have been killed. The fact that he's still alive, that he was able to make a career for himself without being signed to a label, and today be a billionaire. How do you then say to somebody, you can have drive and education and skill and opportunity and know the right people, but you're also going to need luck? Where is he going to get that luck from? You can't bank on it, right?
You can't. All men are born equal. Others just work hard at pieces. Don't you think that's the thing?
But the people, think about this, right? I mean, I haven't watched Idols in a long time, but the last time I watched Idols, I saw 100 kids that I could have signed. Like incredible singers. And they all have stories. I've been singing in church for 10 years. They did the work. Do you know what I mean? I went to school. I went to School of the Arts. I've got a degree in musical theater. These are people who did the work. Right? And out of the thousands of kids who went there, only 100 got to go to Sun City, wherever they go. Only 15 of them got to be able to go to the finals. And only one of them got to win. And if you think about the winners in the last 10 years, there's like Musa and Kaya with careers. So out of like 10,000 kids who've auditioned there in the last 10 years, you can only attribute it to like 2 winners and maybe like, who's the colored girl who's amazing?
The colored girl, we have Paxton.
No, not the one. She didn't win. She's like a trap soul singer. I forgot her name. Amanda Black. Loiso. There's like maybe like 8 people with decent careers out of 1,000. I don't know, 1,000. Maybe like 5,000 people audition. Right. Those are difficult odds, man. Those are difficult odds for me to be able to go to a young person and say this thing is worth
you pursuing.
And I'm very careful by not killing people's dreams. I want you to want it. I want you to go after it. But I want you to go knowing exactly what you're getting yourself into. Having considered all the odds and banking on yourself by saying, I am talented, I do have it, I do have that sparkle, I do have that star quality, but I want to get this degree. Because at 40, I want to be able to raise my kids and not worry about money. Do you know what I mean? Just in case this thing doesn't work out.
So I hate the phrase "have something to fall back on." I hate that phrase because I've coined it and I say, so getting a degree or getting a qualification allows you to learn to fail forward, right? So meaning you are not saying when this thing fails, I'm gonna go back to that, but you are saying I've laid a foundation enough for myself so that when this thing that I'm trying to pursue does not really yield the desired results, then I know there's something else that I can look forward to do, right? So maybe we then need to change the way we say things, because
maybe
you and I can see a glass, that's got half a water on it, I can see it as half empty, you can see it as half full.
For sure.
It's about, a perspective and perception about how we see something else.
And another way to look at it is that if I go and I study law or I study business, whatever, even as an artist, when it comes to things like understanding publishing, understanding marketing, understanding PR, understanding distribution, understanding how to be able to not get taken advantage of by accountants, to be able to check out your own books, to be able to understand the bigger spectrum of the music industry, other opportunities of how you can make money, partnerships, all these things that artists don't know, because artists know how to go into studio and lay bars and then they think it's magically going to happen.
Yeah.
But there's a whole thing behind that, right? And if you have the understanding of it, you can better praise yourself. If you have a business, if you're trained in business, you'll know that you're always looking for that unique point of view, right?
Yeah.
What is it that makes me unique from everybody else? That's something you get trained at, right? Even as an artist, you must look at yourself and say, yeah, I'm talented, but what's the point of me going to the market and doing exactly what everybody's doing in an oversaturated market? What is it do I bring to the market that's different, that's going to allow people to see me differently from somebody else? That kind of a thinking, that kind of training, right? You get by going to school. Like, I read a quote from somebody who says, they never really understood that the fact that all these X plus Y equals to C X whatever that you learn in high school in math, like they've never needed to use it in high school.
So for X, it's never been a thing.
You've never. But then somebody answered them and said, your ability to do that trains your mind to think in a particular way.
Yeah.
So it's not actually the actual content that you need, but it's getting your mind to think in a particular strategic way. When you're learning math, you don't really need to use X plus Y, but your mind is now tuned to know how to solve problems because of that. So there's a lot of things that you could use as an artist in the market that you could have learned by just going to school.
So software X is not the solution, but it's the process.
The process of it, exactly.
Helps you to understand.
And you go into the market as a better thinker, better problem solver, somebody who's able to recognize opportunities much quicker if you go to school.
So then, you then opened a new another account here. So, but then, don't you think what we should be looking at is teaching everybody who says I want to become an artist the business of music? Because
of course,
getting to studio and recording is one tiny bit of the bigger business. Right?
To tell you the truth, I think it's probably the least important.
Yeah.
Because everybody can record, and young kids or students in their homes, technology has made it so much easier to record. But recording is actually the least important thing in the business. Because that's the most accessible thing you can do.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You just literally need a laptop, and you could buy yourself a second-hand 500 Rand mic at Cash Crusaders, and you can record an album.
Yeah.
Right? So the technology has made it easy. All the hardware that we used to spend thousands on is now easily accessible online for free. You just go sit at McDonald's with the free Wi-Fi and download the software, and you got a studio on your laptop.
Yeah.
So that's actually the least important thing. And you can get a kid go get a Kingalona to come in, and you guys can record an album, and you've got it. So once the product is there, so what? The process of what happens from the moment once you have the product that's going to make you successful. That's actually what's important. Understanding publishing, understanding distribution, touring, all that stuff that's important. Partnerships, how to speak to brands, how to sell your music to TV, to movies, opportunities, how to sell your music to ads, how to promote. All that kind of stuff is stuff that's important. That's what makes an artist. The talent in the recording is actually not that important at all.
So I think then we agree that maybe the biggest problem or the biggest thing that we need to focus on is teaching people the business of music, right?
Yes.
So how then do we then get your music out there? So how then do we promote you? How then do we market you? How then do we make sure that you've got gigs? How then do we looking at how over the years we've had artists who now they live throughout for 40, 50 years in the music business, then they die, and then we are told so and help them. So what do you think are some of the lessons that all of us can take from all of this, so that you can't hear that a so-so artist who we knew to be winning Grammys and to be winning Summers every single year has now died a pauper. So what do you think are some of the things that we should be?
I mean, the first thing that like artists need to know how to be able to have an eye on their money. Like, you just can't trust people.
Yeah.
You need to be able to look at your own books and see how much money is coming in and how much money is going out.
Yeah.
And be able to understand that what you're reading. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think and know the organizations that pay into your business and how that works.
Yeah.
So knowing how Sambro works and Sampro works and Capasso work and knowing how much streaming costs and how much of that actually gets into your
pocket.
Yeah. Understanding contracts, how much do labels take? And why do they take that much?
Mm-hmm.
So if the labels say, because we recorded you, we're going to take 80% of your money, should they be recording you then? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So should you be signing artist deals now? Another advantage, maybe they can market you better. What can you do in your own stuff that markets you versus what the label can do, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's like very basic things that you could learn. I think the most important thing is being able to read the paperwork that where your money comes in and where it goes out and who's taking a cut and why are they taking a cut.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I just think people just trust too easily. Okay, the system works. I want to sign this contract, and everybody here is out for to get my bag. Yeah. No, they got their own bag. Do you know what I mean?
Okay. So, and I want us to quickly talk about the challenges that come with belonging to a major record label versus being an independent. Right?
Yeah.
So I mean, you spoke about understanding the contracts, why you should sign to a label and how much are they taking, why are they taking that much.
For sure.
So I mean, and it seems like an easier thing to do for me to go and sign with a bigger major label company as opposed to me doing this thing as an independent.
For sure.
So how difficult is it for you to break away from that cycle of belonging to a major and then coming in as an independent?
Well, first of all, the advantages to both, depending on where you are in your career.
Okay.
I mean, I hate calling people brands. It's like really stupid in my opinion.
Okay.
But assuming that, understanding the idea of like, to sell an album, people need to buy into the brand.
Yeah.
And brand meaning that they trust the product to be quality and that it's worth my money.
Yes.
To be able to build that brand is a very expensive process. And most artists don't have that money.
And it takes longer.
Yeah, it takes longer, it's expensive, and you need to know the right people.
Yeah.
So as a new artist, I definitely think sign to a label.
Okay.
Because as much as you want to start out as an independent artist, you don't know where to go, you don't have the money, and you don't have the time.
Okay.
You don't have the relationships. When you sign to a major label, it's so much easier for you to get on radio. It's so much for you to get on, much easier to get on TV. All that process is expensive. It's long. The admin is crazy. You don't know what papers to get, what papers to fill in. Who should I sign my publishing with? What do I expect from my publishing to do? I think do sign with the major label so that they can spend that money building your brand. But also in that process, don't just be sitting at home. Watch and learn. So I used to like when people used to go on press tours, and the guy who's going to try to convince a music compiler to get my song signed on radio, they used to say, okay, just chill in the car, we're going to do this for you. And for a while I used to do that, but I'm like, why? Yeah. Then I used to go with them. I want to hear what he's saying to them. So today I'm able to write an email and say, I know exactly what to say because that's what I learned. Yes. So I do think if as a young artist, it's much easier to give away a lot of your percentage because you don't have that money. And to get your music properly mixed, to get it properly mastered, it's expensive. You don't have that money. I mean, now it's easier because we don't print CDs anymore, but before, printing was expensive. Yeah. You wouldn't have the money to print CDs, get somebody else to print that money for you. You wouldn't have the money to be able to go to radio stations in Durban, in PE, in East London. They'll do that for you. So I think one of the best. I mean, my first album was licensed, but my second album I was signed to Universal. Okay. And I also did an album with Gado. And I'll tell you, like, as much as I enjoy being an independent artist now and being able to do things myself because I know how to do things now, there was a lot that I learned, and I was thankful that I was signed to a major label because they did a whole lot for me that I could have done for myself.
Okay, so let's speak about the albums under your belt.
Okay.
So Uzobuya, I think, was your first single back in 2012.
Yeah.
Then the album that came out was All Things Grey.
Yes.
One, why All Things Grey?
I just like the idea that grey is like the middle ground.
Okay.
And I was doing like very unpopular kind of like genres and sound, and I didn't want to be categorized. So I like this idea of being like in a gray space,
area.
which allows me freedom to be as creative as I want to be, and not allow myself to be boxed into like he's a this or he's a that, or you know what I mean. I mean, at some point I was known as like the South African neo soul artist. And after a while, I was like, I don't want to be boxed as this artist, because then that's all people ever want. Like even today, people are like, "When are you making another color view?" I'm like, I made that 10 years ago. I don't want to do it.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. And I wanted to just be a free artist, and that's why I called All Things Grey.
I mean, All Things Grey was exactly that. It was All Things Grey. So for me, it was a fusion of different sounds, right?
For sure.
And in the stands out the song, the Sangomata or the Sokotula or the Sangomata song.
Yeah, for sure.
And surprisingly, weirdly, so the first time I heard you and saw you perform that song was somewhere in the East.
For sure.
And then the late Sokotula came on stage.
For sure.
How was that experience like for you?
Well, it helped because we were friends.
Oh, okay.
And I played him the song before I put it out.
Okay.
What happened is in my portrait days when I was a poet, Brahu's daughter Pula is a good friend of mine. So I've known Brahu from high school.
Right.
And we've always known each other for a long time. And when I started to become popular at Joburg as a poet, Brahu was like, hey, I'm working on this album, and we're looking for writers. And so I was producing the album. And so I went in as like 20 or something to write for Pratsepo, which was like insane.
Yeah.
And at the time I wasn't even thinking about being a musician, so I'd write this song for Pratsepo, and me trying to teach him, I'd have to sing
for him. Yeah.
I would have to sing like, oh, why don't you try to do it like this? Why don't you try to do it like this? And he was like, dude, why aren't you singing? Like you got a voice on you. So it was very encouraging that a Pratsepo who saw like potential in me being a musician when I didn't even see it. And so we'd been friends for as long as that.
Okay.
But I grew up with my dad loving Sankomota. My dad used to take me to festivals to see them. So he was always a hero of mine. So when I did my first album, I definitely wanted to pay tribute to him.
Yeah.
I played him the song. He was very excited. And the one thing he said is that previously when people have tried to cover his music, they've always tried to emulate him. Yeah. Which he really hated. Like people would try to sing like him, and people would try to like phrase like him. It's like it just sounds like you're almost mocking me. So he never really loved people covering his stuff because people would try to mimic him, and I sound nothing like myself. So I didn't even try. You know, sound like it, I just loved his music so much, and I wanted to interpret it in my own way. You know, and he absolutely loved it. So that one time when that's the only time I ever performed with him. Yeah. I didn't even know he was gonna come on stage. Yeah.
I saw a few tears that just bothered me.
I mean, can you imagine like in the middle of honoring somebody, the person comes on stage and starts singing? I was flabbergasted. Yeah. And I've been very lucky, man. I've been very lucky that my first time performing at the Metro FM Awards, I had a chance to pay tribute to Ray Peary, who's also like a huge influence of mine, and I had an opportunity to perform with him, and we became friends ever since. We were talking about actually us working on the next Dimit album. I was supposed to be on that album. Okay. With Brahu, I was on his last album. So all these people that like I admire, that I loved, I had an opportunity to produce for Mspongi Kumalo. So in my very small career, and with all my self-doubts about my talent as a musician, I've always been validated by these people who I really, really admire, you know?
I want to talk about all of those people that you've worked with. But I want to know, you're a poet, you're a writer, you're an actor, you're a musician. What else can you do?
Well, before I couldn't cook, but my wife is teaching me. So I'm getting better at it.
You see, so you can do them all.
Yeah.
So, fast forward a few years later, I then get to see you at the Market Theatre, right? I think that day you had the Fridge, you had Something Soweto on stage, you had Brian Temple on stage. In the audience, there's a Mam Spongile Kumar.
For sure.
And she was sitting, I didn't even see her, she was right in front of me, up until you sang The Color of You, and then she stood up and says, "This is my ultimate favorite song."
For sure.
So knowing that, you know, these great artists that we all grew up listening to, you know, Brahu, Dr. Tsepo, Mam Spongile, Dr. Ray Piri. So knowing that all of these people that we grew up listening to, and you know, whether it was your dad or your mom playing them, whether it was you, you know, because they remind you of something in your childhood.
For sure.
So knowing that these people are able to sit in a room with you and call you on first name basis, and then support your talent and your music like this, what does that mean to you?
I mean, it's the biggest affirmation, you know. And as I said, for me, like I'm more a music fan than I am a musician.
Yeah.
When those things kind of happen, it's beyond like your ability to dream. Like I don't think my imagination is big enough for me to dream something like that.
Yeah.
When it happens, it's big and it's overwhelming, and something I could never get over. Like, I mean, before I recorded this particular album, Passion Fruit, in my mind I was kind of like done, you know, like I don't think I wanted to make music anymore. And I would always say to my friends, like, I've had great moments in this last 10 years.
Yeah.
Memories that will last me forever. You know what I mean? I've collaborated with Eric Robertson. I've collaborated with Ninth Wonder. I've collaborated with Fonte. These are people I consider friends. I've toured parts of the world. I've really had an incredible career. Like even if I never make music ever again, I'll be content with what I've been able to do in the last 10 years, and to be able to win, like, for instance, the Best Male Sama, for instance, right? With an album that I thought was weird. Like Memory Remains was one of, it's just like, literally when I made that album, I was not thinking about market or positioning or radio or whatever.
Yeah.
I just wanted to make the music that I really loved. And some people didn't get it. And for me to win a Best Male Sama for it was a big deal. I've been validated, I've been seen, I've been celebrated. I've got no complaints.
So 5 albums later, so it's now All Things Grey, Memory Remains, Segusile, All Things Red, and now Passion Fruit. So when you look at the whole, you know, bouquet of music that you've done, what does music mean to you? So if you walk into the studio and start recording music, what does that mean to you? Or what does it do to you?
I mean, it brings me a lot of joy. It is definitely a passion of mine. It is, it's healed me. I think more than anything, like, music is a healer for me. And when I make it, in my mind, I'm hoping the healing that it brings me as a creator transcends to people who listen to it. In my mind, I'm hoping if this process healed me in creating these songs, I'm hoping when somebody listens to it, they find their own healing. And it might not even be that deep. Like, they find some sort of ability to get themselves calm. If you're having a hard day, and you need something just to be able to calm the spirit. If my music can do that for you, it validates my purpose on this earth. Like, I feel like I was born to do something important. And I mean, people argue that art is not important, not more important than science, and it's not more important than medicine or politics, whatever. I'm like, we've helped people. I mean, besides the people we've helped make babies, let's just we've helped people heal.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? we've calmed people down. We have a purpose here on life.
Yeah.
I feel I do.
So the reason I'm asking you what does music mean to you is the fact that I think every person that you meet up with in this world will tell you about, when this song plays, it reminds me of this. When this song plays, this is what happens to me. There's a song that you did that got me into trouble, right? And it's weird that what the song says and
what you did is different.
Yeah. So the song "Plenty Babies" with you, Brian Temba, Attraction and the Soil speaks about how you want to have plenty babies with this person.
Yeah.
That song's got me in trouble. Thank God I don't have a child or children out there.
As far as you know.
As far as I know, yeah. Babies that I know of, yeah, at least. And there's a song called from your third album, Segusile, Bubes.
Yes.
Right? So, and I can tell you what that song means. What that song does to me is that it reminds me all the time. And you touched on it earlier on about you can't just trust anybody with your money because everybody are there for themselves.
For sure.
Right? So, and it's easy for people to dupe you into having conversations that benefit them, right? So what the song means to me is that it reminds me consistently that, I should not allow things around me to derail me from pursuing this passion that I have. I should not allow the naysayers to take me away from the things that I want to pursue, right? So that's what music has done for me. Your music has really been part and parcel of my daily soundtrack as I go through this life. And that's why I was asking you, what does music do to you? Because music helps us transition from one phase of our life to another phase.
For sure.
Music helps us to become who we are, because somehow it helps us heal from the things that are hating us. It helps us reminisce and remember the great times that we had with our loved ones. Music will take you through a particular moment, good or bad, right? There's a song that when this song plays, instantly your mind goes back to the particular moment,
sure.
right? So and that's why I was asking you, what does music mean to you? So you've spoken about how music has healed you. You spoke about how music has become that thing for you, that outlet for you, where you're able to come in here and start creating music. And let's talk about the people that you've worked with now. So you've spoken about the older generation, Yabo, the Ray Piri, Brahu. Now there's a new generation of people that you've worked with.
Mm-hmm.
One particular person that comes into mind is Tiwe.
For sure.
So you introduced me to Tiwe. Then there was Notende, right? So the first time I got to hear of Notende, it was not a slicker song that she did. It was Color of You.
For sure.
Right? And I listened to that song now, which is a 10-year-old song, right? A decade later, that song still is part of my top 10 songs on my playlist on Spotify, right?
For sure.
So, and I look at that video and I see, if I remember correctly, this was done at WHP's house.
It was done in the spot where I rehearsed in Newtown.
In Newtown,
yeah.
Right. So we've lost people.
But I recorded it at his house.
Yes, I'm saying.
Oh, you mean that?
Yes.
Yeah.
So the song was recorded at Java's house.
Yeah.
Right. So we'll get to speak about your relationship with Java and other people, but I want us to speak about your eye for talent or your ear for talent. So when you look at the likes of Tiwe, the likes of Motende, the Fridge, and some, because people don't know that Samson Soweto is almost a product of your hands.
For sure.
Right?
Well, I mean, I wouldn't claim that, but
but I'm just saying,
yeah.
He's somewhat the product of your hands, right? So your ear and eye for talent, where does that come from? Is it influenced by where you grew up? Is it influenced by the things that you got exposed to as a child growing up, or what is it?
It's just, again, I've been saying since I started, it's just me being a fan. I'm a fan of everybody. You know? Even today, like I love. I mean, on this new album, I worked with so many young artists, new artists. I work with Mia Pell, who's known for like Amapiano. I work with Russell Zuma, who's known for house music. It's just like when I hear a voice, it doesn't even matter what I hear it on. It could be Amapiano, it could be a hip hop song. I just when I totally fall in love with it, I always want to imagine myself working with that person. I just love talent. I just love discovering new artists, and the amount of music that gets made today compared to when we started is insane.
Yeah.
I mean, 10 years ago you could release an album and be the only artist that released an album in that week.
Yeah.
Today, like when you release an album, there's like at least 20 other albums across the world that are being released.
Yeah.
So the amount of music and artists that you discover every day is insane. And I love it. I just love the fact that the South African audience are open-minded now enough to to pay attention to artists from Ghana, artists from Nigeria and Mozambique, and we're not just focused in America. Like people are falling in love with artists from the UK, all over the world, you know.
Yeah.
So I think that space is good for me as an artist lover to be able to discover different artists. So I think the artists that I collaborate with are always artists that I'm a fan of. Like whether I discovered you on an existing record or I heard you at a jam session, if I love your talent, I always try to use my platform to be able to put you on. Yeah.
You mentioned a few times that you are more of a music consumer than you are that of a musician.
Sure.
And I've looked at almost all the projects that you've worked on. Would you then say that you are living vicariously through other people? And I'll tell you why I'm asking you this question. So there's a show that was done at Lyric Theatre where Unati gave us a full show, and you were the MD there. And I look at the production, I'm like, I've not seen something this great in the longest of time, right? I didn't even know that there was you behind the scenes, right?
For sure.
Until later on in life. So what I wanted to check with you is, so do you then think because you are more of a consumer than you are of a musician, as you call yourself, that you then become that perfectionist who wants to see a perfectly put together product because that is what you would want to have if you're a consumer of this product?
Yeah, and I think that's why almost every album I've produced, I haven't produced full albums. I've usually produced songs on albums.
Yeah.
But the few albums that I've produced Flaba's album, and then won a summer. I produced Wanda's album, very different from Jabba's album.
Wanda,
yeah,
okay.
And she won a Best Jazz album.
Okay.
I just like the fact that I've worked on different kind of genres. I've produced R&B albums, jazz albums, hip hop albums, and all those albums do very well, and they win awards, and people like build careers from them. And that's only because I make albums for other people as a consumer, as a fan, and I'm like, how much would I want to be respected as an audience member listening to this album? Do you know what I mean? Like, I make it with that person, like, if I would buy this album, how much would I want to be honored by it? And that's the kind of detail that I put into those projects.
That makes sense. Right? that you are wearing a hat of a consumer. So meaning, what is the type of music? What is the type of stuff that I want to listen to?
For sure.
Right. So then you're not coming in here as a musician or as an artist, but
For
you're
sure.
coming here as
Well,
a
I mean, obviously I am, but
yeah. No, but what I'm
the
saying
priority of it,
your approach to this thing is you coming in as you are much more interested in the end product
For
of
sure.
how this thing would sound like at the end of it.
there's nothing more heartbreaking than like waiting for an artist to release an album and then you finally spend your money buying it and you sit in your car listening to it and it's like garbage. It's the most heartbreaking thing ever.
Yeah.
It's like, why didn't you spend one more week working on this?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I never want people to have that experience with my music.
Sure. Okay. So the past 2 years have been messy for everyone.
For sure.
Due to COVID, we've lost people along the way. But before we get to speak about what things that we lost in the COVID fire, I want to speak about the untold stories that a lot of musicians and artists in this country go through, and that's things of mental wellness and mental health. One, do you think we speak enough about that as a society, and do you think there's an outlet that the music business or the music industry can go to help deal with issues of depression and mental wellness?
I mean, when honestly, my opinion about it is kind of like, it's kind of like twisted, but
Okay, let's
like,
say.
bear with me. So this, let's say, rapper Kabomo is doing amazing, right? And he's buying a Porsche, and he's blinging out every week at Gonka, buying Hennessy and
Ace of Spades
and
all
Ace
that.
of Spades and wearing 500,000 rand watch, right?
Yeah.
The people who made it possible for me to gain this wealth are struggling, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's such a such a contradiction for me. It's like, and I think it's my age. I'm old. I always struggle seeing people on Instagram bragging about a lifestyle that they were bragging that they were given this lifestyle, and then they brag back to you.
Yeah.
Like, thank you for giving me this money. Thank you for buying my album. Yeah. Now look how much my life is so much better than yours. And our people are struggling.
Yeah.
And they take the little money that they have to buy your album. That's a lot, man. That $100 $100 is like the difference between a meal for a family for 2 to 3 days sometimes.
Yeah.
It's like, it's a big deal.
Yeah.
But I'm choosing to spend this money to buy your music. Then you're gonna go online and brag back to me, right?
Yeah.
Then go into COVID and tell that guy my girlfriend.
Yeah.
And then I'm supposed to come back to you and say, I'm depressed now.
Coupon tax.
Fuck that! So, honestly, I'm not on this bandwagon of crying for artists about being depressed, especially those artists who are showing off when things was good.
Yeah.
You never gave back one bit. You never went back to your hood. You never did anything for your community. You literally went on Instagram and showed us how much your life is better than ours. When that money disappears, and we're all going through shit during COVID. Yeah. So you can only imagine the people who were struggling before, how much more worse it was for them during the pandemic. I don't expect those people to be concerned about my depression because now I have less gigs than I used to. And artists, it's like I downgraded from a band to...
It began to know. Yeah.
Yeah, dude, like calm down.
Yeah.
Right? Like your depression is literally about downsizing. It's not about you not eating for a week. People lost jobs. People were homeless. People went back home. I know friends of mine who went back home, who haven't been living home for 15 years, who had to humble themselves and go back to their parents after 15 years and say, I can't afford rent, go to suburbs anymore. And now I'm not saying it's not important. I'm not saying we should dismiss it. In my mind, I was just like, I don't give a shit. Okay. And I know it's a terrible, controversial thing to say, but
no. I mean, we were asking for opinion, and we got your opinion, so that's good. So, you had COVID.
Yes.
During the.
I almost died.
Yeah, you had COVID more than once.
Well, no, I had it once,
okay.
But that one time was really insane. And the scary thing about it is that we had just cancelled, like many people. It's either you cancel medical aid or you canceled insurance, whatever. Everybody had to cancel something.
Downgrade something.
Yeah. So we canceled our medical aid literally like maybe 2 or 3 weeks before I caught it. So I had to go to a public hospital. I went to Melville. Anyway,
we'll get lost. Yeah.
For me, I mean, besides the fact that I almost lost my life or whatever, the biggest lesson for me there was just the reality of how shit things are for our people. Like the public hospital system, which takes care literally of black people.
Yeah.
I don't think I saw white people in there, because white people can afford, I guess, the medical aid and they go to private hospital. Our public hospital system is broken, dude. For me, like when you talk about lack of leadership, sure, there's like this load shedding problems and all these kind of things. But for me, it's like the small things. It's like, can a black person at Chasakoloi know that he can go to a hospital and get decent, not even fancy,
not top of the range,
decent medical care? It's those kind of things. I totally feel unled by this country because you guys don't give a shit about the basic things. Like buy yourself that big house and buy yourself that that bans. I don't care if you charge them money,
Just do the work.
but just do the work, man. Just make sure that our people can get basic education. Khona le toilet paper ko sekolong, khona le
Functioning classroom.
yeah, exactly, right? I mean, we don't have textbooks, we don't see like
No toilet system.
Yeah.
No sanitary system.
even if our government focused on one thing, even if they say this year our focus is power,
Yeah.
our people will not. Do you know how, or water? Do you know like how degrading it is not to have water for 2 weeks?
For a day. Forget 2 weeks. For a day.
And there's parts of black people in this country who live lives without water. That's insane. There's people who die in hospitals. When I was there for that week, I saw people dying in the hallways, and like you were literally walking over them because our system is broken. For me, it's like if government can say next year our focus is like we're just focusing on education. Everybody, we're just making sure that our kids are properly educated. We're looking at curriculum. We're making sure that there's water in the schools and there's textbooks. And then the year after that, we're looking at public hospitals.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Just like do something. They haven't done shit. And when I was there, the biggest eye opener for me when I was there fighting for my life was just the reality of how we as black people, we are stepping shit in this country. And the lives we lost during COVID mostly were preventable lives that could have been saved if we had a decent public hospital system.
Sure. Yeah. So I'm quick. I've gone off script completely here. So let's speak about your latest offering,
Sure.
Passion Fruit. From speaking about color to now speaking about passion fruit. Why? What influenced the name or the title? of the
First of all, I like the passion fruit flavor in yogurt. I love yogurt. Yogurt is my favorite thing, and the passion fruit flavor is like my favorite.
Ah, okay.
But I also like the double meaning of it, that this is actually a fruit of my passion.
Oh, okay.
So just like the double meaning, I thought was cool.
Okay, it's quite cool.
Mm.
So if you were to look yourself in the mirror now and probably rewind back 35 years, what would you tell your younger self?
To be patient, and to be kinder to yourself. I think I was very unkind to myself. I was too hard on myself. I've always been ambitious. I've always had high expectations of myself, and I think sometimes it's cool to raise our young kids to be ambitious and to be driven, but also it's okay to let them be young and be curious and just live their lives and not to be too harsh on them. I think it's possible to raise aware, smart, driven kids while allowing them to be kids. And I think that's the one thing I feel like I grew up too fast. I wish I paced myself a little better.
At some point, which I hope is not anytime soon, you are going to, switch off the mic and hang your headphones. What would you like the world to remember you for, and what would you like the world to remember you as?
I think. I mean, I was asked this question this morning, and I think it's this idea that I'm tenacious. That I mean, you and I actually in our private spaces we've had conversations when I was at my worst and I needed your help, and this journey had given me ups, but also given me downs. And in my downs, my belief in myself, my belief in God has kept me going, and I've never given up on myself. And I want people just to remember me for just being tenacious, to be able to withstand the storms and believe that there's always the light on the other side. That your worst of the circumstances are there to teach you whatever lesson you need to, but you'll always come out of it. You'll always come out of it. And I think it's really coming from this country, like the black people from this country, like survived so much. Our strength is insane. I can't imagine how a black parent would not consistently tell their black child that your people come from the worst of the worst, and what you see to them, seeing them as today is because of people who laid their lives down, people who got arrested, people were killed, so that we could show our strength and our beauty and our magic. To come from that legacy is amazing, I think.
And I mean, you've given us great music over the years, whether as yours or whether working with other people. You've shared your gift and your talent with us, and for that I'm personally grateful. Right? That you've allowed us, to be a part of your life. Whether on screen, whether on radio, you've allowed us to be a part of your life, one way or the other. So people listen to your music and they can relate to you as a human being. So now that we are here, what else do you still want to achieve for yourself?
I was approached by a publisher to write a book, so that's something I could do.
Okay.
I actually had written a poetry book like 8 years ago that was edited by the late Karapeto Khosi. There was a big inspiration of mine.
Mm-hmm.
But I've been asked to write either a novel or a book of short stories.
Okay.
So I think I'm gonna do that. I wanna make films, and I wanna, even though I don't wanna make music, like maybe for the next after this project, I don't think I'm gonna release an album. But I want to be able to allow myself that even though I won't be like see myself as a musician, when I'm in a different country and I meet a musician that I admire, I want to allow myself that space to be able to still go and make a song with them.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean? But I definitely don't want to have like a reliance on music as a career in the next 5 years. I don't want to see myself like being that person.
So there's a pattern and a trend between a group of people that are put in the same pot, right?
Okay.
So there's a pot that I have, and in this pot lies Kabomo, lies Wandile, Protection.
For sure.
There is Brian in there, there is Press in there.
For sure.
And I've labeled this pot Gems of Soul.
Okay.
When I speak to all of you individually, all of you have got the same thing that you're telling me, which I don't like, but it's not outside. And what you're telling me is that I don't think I'll be doing music for the next 5 years. Right? I don't think I'll be releasing music for over the past over the next 5 years. But it's a story for another day. So I'm asking of all of you, and I know it's a selfish thing to ask for, is that get together again, give us a show for the next 5 years, so that at least we know that even though we don't have tangible material from you that we can play that is new, there is still something that we can all fall back on and say, in this lifetime, these guys gave us this. Last year, February, was it last year? No. When did we have a comedy night?
Yeah, I think it was 2 years ago.
2 years ago.
Yeah.
So you brought everybody back on stage.
For
right?
sure.
And that's what I mean. So you gave us Afro Attraction, you gave us Brian, who's that lady from the Tswati lady?
Oh yes, Zama.
Zama. You gave us Zama, you gave us Unati, you gave us Solo. So all I'm saying is, as much as you want to pick it up and do other things, and we didn't speak about your stint as an editor for Destiny Man.
For sure. For True Love Man.
True Love Man.
Yeah.
So we've never really spoken about that part. So we spoke about you being a writer. So there's a poetry book which I think we need to dust it off and put it back on the shelves. I'm looking forward to the book that you're gonna write. But over and above short stories, I think we need to know and hear the Kabomo story. And I'll tell you why I'm saying this.
Mm-hmm.
We don't document a lot of our history as black
For sure.
right?
For sure.
So, and I think my theory has always been until the hunter start telling their stories. So until the hunter start telling their stories, the hunter will always take the credit.
For sure.
Right?
For sure.
So we need to get to a point where we start owning our own material.
I get asked this all the time. You know, my problem is I don't have a chronological thing in my head, order in my head.
We don't need the order. We need stuff written.
Let me tell you, like, I know I've done this and I know that I don't know the years, I don't know where I was, I don't know who I worked with. I'll bump someone like, hey, I used to write for you on YMAC. I'm like, really? What year was this? So it would be a mess trying to write for and I've done so much. It's just like, I mean, it's a terrible story. But I remember I was at a gig, right? And this beautiful woman comes up to me. It's like, hey, how are you? I'm like, hey, how you doing? And now I'm trying to be like, time with this woman. And at some point, during this, me trying to be smooth with this girl, I realized this girl, because through the conversation, I realized, oh shit, this was my student Goved. I'm like, how old am I, first of all?
Yeah, to have a student
who now looks like a human being.
But look, I think for me, Kabomo, it's not a case of, order, right? For me, it's about, let's sit in the room, let's document this thing. So
Let me tell you,
someone's gonna remember the dates.
I wrote Donata's book, right? And the most fascinating thing about just listening to her stories is, and that's when I realized I would never be able to write my book, is how she remembered everything, dates where she was, in order. When I was at Rhodes this year, me and this person did this, then the next year this happened, and the next year I got married, and this year I started this job, and I recorded. I was like, it's amazing, and it made my job easy. I was just like writing. She would tell me stories, I was just writing them. It was the easiest project I ever done.
Yeah.
And in my mind as I was doing this, like, I could never do this. Like, I knew I went to high school. If you ask me what year it was, I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah, we'll then go to the school records and find out what year was this.
If you want me to do that, let's do it.
I mean, and why I'm saying this, again, it brings me to my point about you living your life vicariously through other people, right? So you said and wrote Unati's book. You said and wrote Flavor's album. You said and wrote or produced Wanda's album, right? And when you look at all of this, the project that you've worked on, there's a touch of magic there, and if we don't document this, it's gonna go away, and we will remember you as, oh, that guy that used to write, but we will never get to sit and understand the gem that lies in you. And look, don't even answer now, no pressure. But I'm just saying, it's a case of,
it's out there. It's out there.
So I'm throwing it out there to say,
sure,
we need to see a Kabomo story told by Kabomo, right? So it shouldn't make sense in anyone's head, but we need to know who you were, where you were born, and what you did, right?
It's in there. It's out there.
Out there.
We'll see what happens.
Thank you very much. That's all that I need. I need a commitment to say we'll see what comes out of it. But thank you so much.
Thank you so much for coming.
Yeah, mine is to celebrate you. I think over the years I've told you that, you are one of the people that we need to celebrate. There's a touch of magic about you that we need to consistently remind ourselves of. So I'm here to say I appreciate you. We appreciate you as an industry. May your star keep shining. I know you don't want to do all sorts of things, but may your star keep shining. May the fruits of your labor, the ones that you're passionate about, get to be seen. May all things that were considered to be grey, may all things that were considered to be red, come out to life, and may you deal with the desired results.
Thank you.
Right? So
my entire album catalog. Thank you.
See, yeah. So I appreciate you for giving us a chance to really get to understand and know a bit about your life.
For sure.
May we get to now appreciate your music even better, now that we've got a better understanding of who you are. May we get to consume your products better now that we understand, the journey that goes behind putting all of these things together. And it's not by luck, it's not by chance, but you stood out amongst the thousands of people that you thought were better talented than you. And it's that thing that got you to the other side. And may we all learn something about that from you. So keep shining.
Thank you, my brother. Thank you for coming to my home. Thank you to these beautiful ladies you brought to my house. We brought light to my house.
Thank you. So it's been another interesting conversations with Lucy. Let's do it again next time. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, as well as SoundCloud, as well as Apple Podcast. It's Lucy Gazi. Keep shining.